socials that we're live.
I have to say, it's a big sacrifice being here tonight because I don't know how many people are basketball fans, but the New York Knicks are starting off their evening and on the precipice of hopefully getting to the next level. Hopefully, I didn't offend anyone here on this, but anyway.
I almost wore my hat, but then I was like, nah.
We could just add, can't we add like that into the stream? Just like a little box. What's going on? Yeah, is this starting like now, I assume? I haven't seen the start time.
Yeah,
It
totally.
normally starts like a little bit later than 7,
Yeah,
you know, so.
Yeah. We'll catch this back half.
But we haven't been to the Eastern Conference Finals in 25 years.
Yeah.
And the amount of success they've had in my lifetime is small. Minuscule.
It gives you perspective. You got to embrace while you can, right? You don't know, life is very fleeting, so you got to
exactly
jump in when you can.
No, I'm enjoying it, even though I'll admit I'm not like a massive Knicks fan or anything, but as a Suns fan, it's a very painful year. So to get to like root for somebody is like cool.
You're a New Yorker, Nick.
Okay.
I know. I need to work on that part of it, I guess. But
channel the New Yorker.
All right. So I see I posted to all of our accounts. I see that we are live now, and we already have people watching us. So let's just rock and roll. So hi everyone. We are so excited that you have decided to spend some time with us this evening. My name is Raul Hernandez, and I'm the co-executive director of Blue Collar Post Collective. And along with my good colleague / friend Matt Sosa, we're hosting tonight's panel. Matt, how are you today?
Doing good tonight. How are you, Raul?
I'm doing good. It's very, very rainy over here in New Jersey, but I mean, cannot complain at all. But yeah, we're so excited to have all of you joining us and watching tonight. And for all of the new / soon to be graduates that are watching, on behalf of the entire team at Blue Collar Post, I would just like to congratulate you all on your incredible achievement. I mean, having been through university for film school myself, like I know it's not easy. It's very, very challenging, but very rewarding. And I know that you guys have worked hard for the past 4 years, maybe some of you a little longer than that. And we can't wait to welcome you all into our crazy little industry. It's an interesting time to try to get into this field, but at BCPC, we're here to support you guys in whatever way that we can. And we are like super proud of all of your successes and your everything that you guys have done in college. So a big round of applause to all the graduates. Amazing. Yeah, if for all of you graduates that just happen to be in the New York City area, we would like to let you know that our next monthly networking meetup is on Tuesday, May 27th at 7 p.m. at the Peculiar Club, 145 Bleecker Street in New York. Normally, our monthly meetup in New York is the last Monday of the month, but because for this month that would fall on Memorial Day, we just decided to move to Tuesday. And also, for those of you guys who are maybe watching us from LA, like we do have a monthly meetup planned for June. So please just stay tuned to our Facebook and our Instagram for more information on that when it becomes available. And yeah, shout out to everyone who came out to this past weekend's LA meetup. I was not there, obviously, because I live in New Jersey, but I heard it was really well and it was really fun. So thank you for that. And with that, I would like to introduce our panel. First up, we have Nick Ramirez. Nick, how are you?
I'm great. Happy to be here and good to see you again and some of these familiar faces and some new ones.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. We have Max Berger. Max, how are you doing today?
Doing swell. Excited.
Yes, we have. Yeah, we're excited to have you. We have Colleen Cavolo. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I am great.
We have Raven Peterson. How are you, Raven?
Doing well. Really excited to be here.
And last but most certainly not least, we have Andy Pang. Andy, thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here with everyone.
Right. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be on this panel with us. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone watching at home really appreciates it as well. So yeah, let's get rocking and rolling. And I personally, it's my belief that for people that are working in the film and TV industry, it's like there's never any two paths that are exactly alike. It's not like, oh, like if you want to be a lawyer, like you get a degree in criminal justice and you work as a paralegal, then go to law school, then bam, you're a lawyer. It's like I'm oversimplifying that a lot, obviously, but kind of like get what I'm saying. There isn't like really like one sort of like linear path to get to where you want to be in this industry. So, with that in mind, I think that everyone working in this field has their own distinct story as to how they got to where they are. So, I just want to like throw this out to the panel. If everyone could just very briefly just explain like what is your story? Like briefly take us from when you were in college to where you are now. We can start with Max. How are you?
Sure, yeah. I'm good. I graduated film school in 2010 at USC, which feels like multiple lifetimes ago. And I was originally from New York, so I moved back to New York after college. Um, I worked, I mean, I did a bunch of things after I graduated school before I found myself on this path. I thought maybe briefly that I wanted to work in pre-production, and I interned at Scott Rudin for about a year, which was an interesting experience. And then I decided that post was always what I felt most comfortable with in school, and I love editing and I love being behind computers and I love being part of a team, especially in the way that the camaraderie of post production is. So I started doing freelance for a while, but I found in New York doing freelance film editing often meant that I had to be like the one man band where I was shooting it and filming and getting things out quickly. And, sometimes it led to funny random events, but other times it was grueling and was barely making rent work. I was also typing for a psychologist for a while. But anyway, about like 5, 6 years after school, through a friend of mine from college, I was able to get an interview to be a post PA on this New Line film called How to Be Single. And I got hired for that. And then I post PA'd for a couple years and eventually was fortunate enough to join the union. And I was the first on First Reformed. That was the first movie that got me into the union. And from there, I've been in the union now for about 7 years. 6 years. I don't know. I've lost track. I feel like that's the story condensed.
No, it's amazing. I think that's great, and we're certainly will get into more detail on a bunch of those great things as we move forward. But yeah, that's a pretty exciting story, man. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I definitely yada yada a few of the staircase steps, but yeah, happy to be where I am now.
Yeah. Okay, let's move. Raven, what is your story?
Yeah, so I went to film school at Chapman University in Orange County, and in California. And I actually had the opposite experience from Max, where I was from New York and the same experience as Max is where I was from New York, went to California. And then I just stayed here. But yeah, so I graduated from film school in 2018. And I kind of switched gears halfway through my film school experience. I went to school for writing, for screenwriting, and then took an editing class and decided that's where I belonged instead. Um, so I had to kind of adjust from there, graduated, and then I was a freelancer for a little bit, but couldn't really make it work. I had a job with a company that I interned for a while, but it wasn't really working out. And then I cut a feature with some of my graduating class members that was fun, but it didn't really pay the bills. So I ended up getting a job as an Avid PA at a Avid rental company, just to make ends meet and stuff like that. Ended up moving up that ladder and becoming an Avid technician, certified system specialist for about 4 years, and then from there happened to just find an opening at Naughty Dog, which is where I work now as a cinematics editor, applied for that job and got it. And that's where I've been for the past 3.5 years. So yeah, kind of a all over the place journey of a lot of really lucky opportunities that came my way for sure.
It's a little all over the place, but I think that really emphasizes the point is that in this industry, there is no like one linear path to get to where you want to be. But I think that's amazing, and congratulations on landing a job at Naughty Dog. That's like one of the biggest like video game companies, I think, I would say.
Yeah, it's a blast for sure.
Okay. Nick, what is your story?
Let's see. I graduated from Arizona State in fall 2010. Arizona is where I grew up and was native to, and one would assume, like I did for a long time, that I was going to go to LA after that because it was, right next door. But I was fortunate enough. My film program had this like really briefly lived relationship with Universal Pictures, and it was like in my sophomore year I was selected for this internship where basically they just threw you to Universal and said take them, like do whatever with them. Some people like had that not go well, they were just like stuck in an office for 4 months or something, but I was fortunate where I was basically given to the UPM and the production office on a movie out here that was mostly shot in New York. It was the film that eventually became called It's Complicated. It was untitled at the time. And so I started as an intern. It was sort of like a get credit thing. And so I came out to New York and only been here quickly as a tourist, moved into a hostel. That's a whole other separate story. But it was great. And basically spent 2 weeks in the production office. And then they were like, where do you want to be? And I was like, at the time, like, they had a little bit of post in New York, but the main post team was in LA. So I was like, send me to set, because I just love being on set and film school and everything. So, and that was kind of like, I just wanted to be on sets and on movies. And so I got thrown to set on day one and basically was an unpaid PA for the whole shoot. Not for the whole shoot, for 2 months. And then I eventually did get hired and like moved up on the same movie. So jumping ahead a lot of, steps there, basically set is where I started. And when I moved back out to New York after school, I had a few contacts, from there, and was getting, a couple of days here on a set, a couple of days there. I knew I wanted to get into post, but that was sort of my way in. And I still enjoyed being on set. It wasn't something I wanted to do for 5 years, but that was basically where it started. And the New York part of it, for what it's worth, when I had that experience out here, which was roughly 5 months or 6 months total. And there was also a month in LA. So I kind of got like a taste test of like being a PA on both coasts on that job. And I just fell in love with New York, and separate from the film side of it, just the culture here and it was so wildly different from what I grew up with in the Phoenix area. It just totally won me over. So, and then I pragmatically just knew a few people from that job. So it was like, well, my chances are higher if I just get back over there, and I like it anyways. So yeah, it was like early 2011. I jumped out here, worked on set on and off for the first year, did some other odd jobs, and was getting some post PA interviews, and finally nailed one. I was on like the last 3 months of Hugo, the Scorsese movie, which was a nice first post PA job to get. But it was pretty quick. My first real long one that kind of cemented me was The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And then so from there, skipping, trying to be brief about it from here, I kind of have followed the traditional ladder post-wise since then, PA to apprentice to assistant, cutting, and along the way trying to cut as much as I could to speed that process up. So
amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And Andy Pang, what is your story?
How much time do we have? Just joking. My path is actually very different. And it's kind of remarkable that I'm here right now, even talking about working post. I'll just start off. I came to post-production very late. I actually graduated from college many years ago with a two degrees, one in economics and one in theater. And when I got out of school, I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. I had pressure from my Asian parents to pursue something that was conservative and grounded. With an economics degree, I was exploring things in finance. And I decided to take that experience with theater and economics and try to become a reporter or anchorman. So I interned at CNN. I was a PA for the Larry King Live show, a few shows there. I worked for CBS Sports, and I even wrote for a little newspaper for a while, but that newspaper got canned. It was a very corrupt publication. And basically, this is kind of the unusual part. I fell back into the world of acting. And I did some acting. This was down in the DC area for about a year or so. Got some decent work there. Was living out of my parents' basement. Anyway, I decided that I wanted to pursue it, so I got into graduate school. So I went to graduate school for acting for about 3 years, and the natural kind of flow at that time was to go to this program and then come to New York City. And that's what brought me here for my kind of initial connections. And basically, I was an actor in New York for maybe 10 to 15 years. Off years, good years. And I'll be totally transparent. I didn't come to this industry until I was 37 years old. I was in a place where I was looking for more security. But at the same time, being an Asian American actor, I came up against a lot of various challenges. And I had some peers who were starting to create some of their own things. And that was my initial goal of getting involved in post-production, was to create pieces of my own where I had more of a voice, because as an actor at that time too, being an Asian American actor was very much stereotypical roles and not a lot of great opportunities. So I wanted to try to tell those stories. So I took a great program here in New York called the Edit Center. It was a 6-week Final Cut program. A lot of great editors here in New York, a lot of great assistants have come from that place. And what was great was that school was inside of a small post facility. And just out of luck, I got a chance to be a person to work in that facility. And, editing for me was always a side thing, so I could continue to work as an actor. But I had a certain kind of technical proficiency, I guess you'd say. And I didn't really treat post-production very seriously for a while until I kind of reached a point where I was having some financial issues. I was having some issues with my family where I needed to support some people. And that's when I turned from my world of working in post-production and kind of aggressively pursued it. And I got my first union job. And I should also add, when I worked at the post facility at that time, I had this crazy idea that I was going to be a conform artist and a colorist. And that was going to be my kind of side gig while I continued to act. So I did some of that. And I have to say, I think working in the post facility is what gave me a lot of the grounding that I have now, being an assistant editor and an editor. And anyway, I did that. And yeah, I've been in the industry for a while now and have had a chance of working on a lot of cool projects. But yeah, it was an unusual path. Anyway, I'm here today.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying before, like, yes, like that is an unusual path, but I'm really glad that you were able to like explain that unusual path so well, because it's just like people who are not in this industry, I just don't really understand. And it's one of those things that's just like succeeding in this industry. You don't really know how to do that when you're first like starting to like break in and looking for your first jobs and things like that. So like, yes, that was very unusual, but I think that just drives the point more. So thank you for sharing that, man. And Colleen, what is your story about this industry?
Thank you, Ro. It's funny, I'm sitting here listening to everyone's stories, and I just want to highlight how I think every one of us has now noted the luck that goes into the industry. And I just think that's so important to cement that that goes into a lot of all of our stories, which is pretty interesting. My story is also a little bit different. I graduated in 2014 at Point Park University in Pittsburgh, and this is where I live now. I've never left. Um, Living in Pittsburgh, it's obviously not New York and it's not LA, so it's a lot harder to find jobs in editing. So I ended up getting a PA job. There was a few shows and movies in town over the past decade. We've had a small surge. And so I ended up getting a job. They needed costume PAs. And so I ended up in the costume world for about 3 years or so, being a PA, helping with coordinating, things like that. All in all, to say, it didn't really end up working out, which is great for me. And I kind of had a recentering moment after those 3 years where I was like, okay, let's get back into editing. This is what you wanted to do. But again, I live here. The opportunities are kind of scarce, so I turned to Upwork was my main drive of looking for work. And ever since then, I have become a freelance remote video editor. And so since obviously there's a lot of trial and error that goes into that, and bad jobs and good jobs and little jobs and big jobs and things like that, it's been a really interesting time that I've spent doing this. It's kind of how Raul even found me, was because I decided to start a YouTube channel because of all this, just to share my own experience working remote and sharing with people, other beginner video editors, how they can do this too. You don't have to necessarily move to New York or LA. You can do this remote. You can do it on smaller scale and still be able to be a video editor. So that's essentially my story, I guess, the short of it.
Yes, thank you for sharing that so much. And by the way, like if you're like watching this live stream right now, like please like go and check out her YouTube channel. Like she has like a lot of like wonderful, like great tips about like this industry and video editing. And I used to watch her channel a lot back a couple years ago when I was first trying to break into this industry. So thank you for everything that you do, Colleen. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, I think not everyone's as candid about like the trials and tribulations of trying to get into it. So I appreciate anybody that puts it out there.
Yeah.
So next question. Let's go back to when you first graduated from film school. What were your career ambitions back then? Did you ever change? Did they change over time? Did they remain the same? How were you able to manage the uncertainties and anxieties that new graduates often experience? Um, let's go to Nick.
All right. So ambitions when I was getting out, I did know that I wanted to edit. I think I've solidified on that pretty well, like early on in film school, because I was doing it since high school. I mean, I was doing everything since high school, filming your own stuff, editing, but I really loved that moment when stuff actually starts to come together and it's like a thing. It's not just material. So I knew that that was definitely one aim, and it was also, at the time too, there was as many, I think people would say, which is great, is like, and direct, at some point. But I was like, no one just hands you a directing job, so let me like start here. and it felt like that I was like, I knew I'm good at this, so like that's where I'm gonna like kick the door down first, hopefully. So it was always kind of a focus thing by the time I got out. And like I said, even though I was on set, I was trying to find and trying to cross some paths with people in post. And just mentioning on the luck thing, on that first job I was on, I was lucky enough totally randomly to meet at the crafty table an assistant editor and editor here in New York named Carrie Pushkoff, who's like one of like the OGs in my opinion, and like worked on like all of Sex and the City, and like list goes on. And I just met her at the snack table, and she just had time to kill. And so I had like one contact that was in post when I got back here, and she slowly over time was helping pass my name around, which was helpful to getting interviews and things like that. So a bit of luck, but yeah, I mean, I'm still working on the editing thing. I'm happy to be cutting something now, and it's been great. And I'm there's been in recent years there's been times where it's wavered, where I'm like, as you get older, things change, priorities change. You're like, all right, is this still working? But I'm happy to say it is for now. And what was the part of the question? Manage like uncertainties and anxieties. To be frank, I think there was a real power for me in naivete. Like I was just so amped since like I was like 16 to like start, that I don't recall being scared or too anxious. And I'm not saying I was like so awesome. I just was like excited, because I still moved to New York without a job and not a lot of money and all those things, and slept in a basement and all these things. But I think I was fortunate in having that internship / PA experience before I left film school. Like it was a little demystified. So especially going across the country to New York, like I knew what it was. So if I hadn't had that, I'm sure it would have felt very different. But because I had that, and I had made some friends, and I had kind of done it a little bit, I think that set me up to kind of come in, just ready to go. So, big ups to ASU, which at the time was a tiny film school that managed to have that opportunity.
Yeah, that community you found in New York sounds like really important to a lot of people who just need those other encouragements to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Raven, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, my goals and aspirations changed about 4 times throughout the course of film school. So, I don't think I ever really had a like moment of things changing from one thing to the next. It was more of a gradual like rolling of ambitions, I would say, where I went to film school expecting to become a showrunner. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a showrunner. I wanted to be a head writer. And then I like took 2 screenwriting classes, and I was like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And then I took an editing class, and it was what I thought it was going to be. It was like, that's what I wanted. And I had a lot of fun doing it. And it was like, this is because I've never really been like a spotlight seeker. So I never had these like dreams of becoming like a famous director or a famous whatever. It was just kind of like I wanted to create things. I wanted to make things that meant something to me. So when I found editing, it was really just like the heavens coming down and speaking to me like, this is here, this is your opportunity. And I actually minored in video game development, which I didn't think was going to go anywhere. I did that for fun. And so I didn't graduate with the expectation to go into the games industry at all. I thought I was going to be a film and TV editor. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to work in television, specifically on like limited series, if possible, like for HBO or Netflix or whatever. And then it was just really hard. It was really hard, and I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know where to go. I didn't really have that many contacts because I went to a very new film school. Like Chapman doesn't have the network that something like USC or NYU or UCLA does. And it's not quite as small as some others, but it doesn't have the history that a lot of film schools have, so the network is not as vast. But my editing professor, my thesis professor, Scott Arundel, was like a godsend for me. He got me the job that I had at the Avid rental company because he knew the CEO of that company, and that was kind of my foot in the door. So like over the course of my entire career, I've kind of just been like taking opportunities as they come. At some point, I gave up the like, this is where I want to be dreams and just like going with the flow. I take what comes to me now, and it's been a really great experience. It's been really fun to just do things as they show up and take opportunities as they come. And I met some really great people and had some really great experiences. Yeah, that's probably what I would say.
That's awesome. Yeah, the kind of assessing what's going on in the industry and like what are your opportunities you can take advantage of right now are, I think, really important. So, congrats that it all worked out. Colleen, how about you?
Yeah, I, I will say that my ambitions definitely changed over time. When I was in school, I probably started like anyone, just like wanting to, because I was like fresh out of high school and I just wanted to make movies and do cool stuff like that. I think over time it got a little bit more practical. I was pretty sure that I didn't want to move, and so I was like, okay, maybe it would just be nice to be in a post house somewhere. Maybe I could edit for news. Maybe I could edit for sports broadcasting. I was like, I don't really care, because the other half of the question, the uncertainties and anxieties, I think that was a big part for me, because halfway through college, I started to have some doubts about maybe this actually isn't the best choice I should have made, and maybe this isn't the most practical thing I could have done. And as someone who has taken on a large amount of debt from said film school, you kind of have to have a conversation with yourself where it's like, yeah, you can quit, and a lot of people did that I knew, or you can just keep going and get yourself a job, because what other option do you have? So I had to really have like a talk with myself about how you can have these nice dreams, that's fun, but let's have a real talk of how you're gonna pay that money back. So that was a big part of my choices.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just the how am I going to survive the next few months mindset that comes with this. Andrew, how about you?
Well, it's a little bit of a tricky question for me. I guess I'll just kind of speak on the fronts of just getting out of school, and the anxiety it is that I can remember about coming fresh out of school, not knowing what's going to be in front of me. How am I going to make money? How am I going to make a living? How am I just going to be able to take care of things? And I think just to get to the kind of root of the question in terms of dealing with the anxieties, I guess I'll just, coming from an acting background, and I think there's always been a part of me that's been into evolving. And what I mean by that, not to sound, it does sound pretentious, what can I say? But to me, there are all these things that trouble us in terms of work, finding work, etc. But I've always kind of made it my MO to just make sure to read, to watch movies, to take things in, to continue to evolve as a person, not only as a quote unquote an artist, but just as an individual in terms of even my relationship with various people. And, the question of like coming to New York and LA, and that's a very big question as an actor. Where do you want to be, LA or New York? And there's always the question, where am I going to land this? Is this going to be the place that gets me work? To me, that answer comes down to your relationships that you have, your friends, your family, the support center that you have. Now, granted, that doesn't mean they all have to be present for you there, but when you have a community there to support you, then you feel like you have a little bit of the freedom to kind of pursue what you want. You have people to talk to about your anxieties, to deal with things, and it gives you perspective at times. So I think to answer that question is it's a curious thing when you're young, trying to find your grounding in this world and discovering who you are. And even at my age, I still find that I'm still dealing with those things. But I think the pursuit of that growth helps you deal with those anxieties, as well as knowing what can be kind of your strategies, the people you reach out to, the things that you do that you can deal with it. And then just on another level, I love your cat, Max.
Thank you.
By the way. And on another
I
level,
can put her down, but she'll just jump back up. Continue.
on another level, I have to say that I've never been a person that's been too proud to say no to any job. Frankly, I think a lot of my work ethic comes from when I grew up as a kid. My dad owned a Chinese restaurant in a Maryland suburb. The first day I came in there, he made me clean the toilet. The next day I cleaned the storeroom, and the next day after that I washed dishes. And so when it comes to being here in New York, I've done anything. I've done telemarketing, I've done various things, but I've also taken the time to kind of at sometimes multitask, like, do a side job, but then do an internship or volunteering for something to get more experience, hustling, so to speak. You're young, you have the energy, do what you can to make a living and do what you can to get the experiences, get experience in the things that you want to do. And I think those two things, in terms of having a support system and ground yourself and evolving, as well as having a certain openness to, what the universe and the world is going to hand you and embrace it, is kind of the best thing. And I'm just going to add one more thing. There was also a time when I was very young and I was in Japan, and I still remark upon this to this day. And I'm sure Japan has changed, but, when you go to Japan or something like that, somebody's a parking attendant. They're a parking attendant. They're focused on being a parking attendant, and they're focused on doing it the best they can. And that's what I would give advice to anyone here. No matter what job you have, there are people who say, oh, I'm going to be a rapper, or I'm going to be a producer, I'm going to be a director. That's fine and dandy, and maybe you will have that type of future. But when you're sitting in the chair being the PA or being the intern or whatever it is, the dishwasher, you embrace that to the best of your ability. And I think people recognize that, and I also think it develops your own work ethic that I think helps you excel in this field or any field.
Yeah, just to chime in really quickly, I have heard from so many editors that they hire assistant editors who are good at being assistant editors, not assistant editors who try their best to be editors from day one, for sure. It's like definitely the more effort you put into the job you have, the more that will be recognized and you'll be able to reach your goals.
Yeah, that was great advice that I learned along the way. Like this is a job in itself, whatever you're doing. And Andrew, that was very well put. I wish I heard that a few years ago. I feel like a lot of people like hide that kind of embarrassment of not doing the thing they set out to do. So I appreciate you like sharing that with us. Max, how about you?
Oh man, my brain's in so many places because I can relate to pretty much everything that everyone has said so far. Um, what is our original question again?
I mean, if you want to just riff on what they said, you can. But the question was, how did your ambitions change over time? What were they originally? And what anxieties and uncertainties came up as a new graduate?
Right. Yeah, I mean, definitely it feels like I've evolved like a handful of times. Um, I think for a while it's funny. Yeah, I kind of like it started with like pre-production, maybe wanting to help like friends get projects off the ground. Then I was like really determined to be a doc editor for a while and found it difficult to make money in that arena, even though I mean I met some wonderful people and did a couple of like great internships. I think, man, I don't know, in terms of things like in terms of anxiety, there used to be a period of time where in between jobs, I would wonder, A, have I made the right choice? Or B, like, is anything ever going to happen again? You're like not working and you're like, okay, great. Like, so I got here, but now what? And I think it's like both a combination of, I don't know, feeling lucky, but also like really enjoying the people that I have worked with that just has continued it going this whole time, where every time it's like, oh, nothing's going to happen. Then the next week, a couple people hit me up, and then there is something that's like all of a sudden available. And that feels strange to say right now because we're in a very rocky era. But yeah, I don't know. You feel like, you have to have a certain level of faith. And that started to work out. Also, kind of going off of what Andy said, like, I just always felt really, it was so exciting for me to be in the building, in post facilities where all these things were happening. And also, it was extremely exciting as a post PA just to be getting a paycheck every week, even if it was a paycheck for a few $100s. But like I mean, at the time, it was like, oh my god, consistent money, and I'm learning, and I'm meeting my heroes. Like, so that was just wonderful in general. Um, and then yeah, I mean, it's Andy also had me thinking. It's just like the other thing is that, yeah, because I always felt lucky to be there, like, as a PA, as an apprentice, as an assistant, I never felt too restless. I always felt like there was a new angle to be like learning something from what I was doing. Um, I'm editing a project right now, but I never felt like too strong of a feeling of like, oh God, what if I do this forever? Or will I be unhappy if I do this forever? It was always kind of like, oh wow, like now it's a bigger budget movie with a lot of visual effects shots. I'm gonna see how that works. Or oh, this is like a smaller movie where producers are more involved and there's a lot of director producer drama. Now I get to see like what this is while earning money. Like, there was always something that or just getting to assist for a couple of editors that like have done projects that or directors where I was just like, oh my God, like I'm in the room with some of my idols right now. And like, it's just amazing to be here. So yeah, I was always just kind of like soaking it up and like trying to really commit and give it my best.
Yeah, it's a great perspective. I think sometimes we overthink where we're at and what's next and what are we taking from this. But I really like that.
I mean, the other wonderful thing with post production is, even though, yeah, I consistently have this like sort of gut check of like, okay, am I happy right now? Is it the right thing? There's also, I just feel like, as I get better and better at being in front of an editing software program, I always feel as if like, like, oh, like, now, like, I don't know, like, it's like I've done experimental videos and music videos, and there's always an angle for me to like still have a lot of fun and joy, even when it can feel condensed and restrictive. And I just have to believe that one way or another, that will continue to be rewarding for me.
That makes sense. Sounds like it's like becomes less fear and more like curiosity and excitement about like what like how can I play with this new genre I'm given.
Yeah. Mm.
Great. Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, and I think like something that's like super important in this industry is to just like kind of like going back to what like Andy was saying, well, really what everyone was saying. It's like you're not like gonna be like an editor or a producer or thing on your first job. Like you make that first impression by like being the best post PA that you can be, and then like you'll slowly start to work your way up. And that's what I felt like when I got my first job working for, a Netflix documentary series. I was just like, yeah, like I'm not the editor. I'm just like I'm a logger, but I'll like, dang it, I'm gonna be the best logger that I can be, and hopefully I'll move my way up. And that ended up being like a terrific first job for me. But anyway, like at least when I was in film school, something that my professors, really stressed a lot all 4 years was the importance of having a network. And when you're first graduating film school, you don't have a network at all, other than like your students, other all the other students that you just spent 4 years with. So to that end, I'm curious. I would like to know if any of you guys like still sort of work with any of your college friends slash fellow alumni, and how have those relationships that you established during your college years, like how have they helped you as you moved along in your career? Let's start with Colleen.
I'm a terrible person to start with for this one because
Oh,
sadly
I'm
I
so
don't.
sorry.
Sadly, I don't currently work with any of my college friends, alumni. I mean, I'm in the know of like things, like local, like film competitions and stuff going around, but I've really gotten out of it just because of my hatred towards being on set, and it's usually something that's involved with it. So, I will say though that yes, you don't really have a network besides what you put into like the people you meet in film school, but um my friends are the people who have gotten me jobs on really any of the industry jobs in my town. So I do think that they are a super important part to nourish when you are first getting out of film school and you don't really know what to do. Like that's the people who you have to rely on. So it is incredibly important to rely on them and to provide for them as well. Um, yeah, that's really all I got to say about that.
No, no, that's fine. I mean, even like a little like small network is still a network. It's better than nothing. Let's say Max, let's go to you.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's funny. I have a funny relationship with even just the term networking because I don't know. It was never like I was like connected to my college or going on these like alumni websites and asking for advice or anything of that nature. I What I really found was just especially like once I was a post PA, I just really enjoyed talking to people at other facilities. And, you guys I was always having like interesting conversations, but they would be like kind of squeezed in like at a lunch table or like in passing. And then it just like always led to me being like, let's get a drink sometime or let's get coffee. I got coffee with Andy and I got coffee with Andy not because I was like hoping that like immediately some job would be created out of getting coffee with Andy. It was because I really enjoyed talking to Andy and I wanted to get coffee with Andy, so I got coffee with Andy. And that's kind of how I've always thought about it. Yeah, so it was like always less about like, you know, I stayed in touch with friends from my college, and some of them did end up happening to work in film. And one of those connections did really help me at one point in time, but it's mostly been just kind of, connecting with people over the joy of movies. And, oh, right. And then besides getting coffee or getting a drink, there's always going to the movies with people, which I'm just consistently doing with both like people that work in film and not work in film all the time because I love the movies. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, we love that. It's important to sort of like nurture a relationship with everyone who is in the same career path as you. Like, don't just like beg for a job out of people, just like be like genuine friends. I think that's like super, super important. So I think it's awesome that you just like regularly go to movies with, your colleagues and things like that. I think that's great. Let's
I mean,
go
I also
to
feel fortunate through the union that they do union screenings as well that I sometimes go to. And then it's like, yeah, with when Barbie was coming out, Nick, you guys had that whole panel at the DGA theater. And that was also something that was like I wasn't like 100% going um to see Barbie in that environment. I was going because I had a bunch of friends that were going. I wanted to go. I knew the person moderating, and then everybody went out for drinks afterward, and it was very joyous and celebratory and amazing. So, yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. Nick, let's go to you.
I'm really grateful to say that yes, I'm really close with a lot of my closest friends from film school still. And surprisingly from Arizona, quite a few wound up out here in New York, similar to how I kind of thought I'd go to LA.
Oh, wow.
But there's a pretty like healthy Arizona contingency out here. While I can't think of an immediate like, oh yeah, that friend from film school, got me a job or whatever. It's like everything everyone else has already said, like the importance, I think Andy said it first, the importance of, I think we're talking about the anxieties of like having those people in your life, in any line of work, is so crucial. I mean, one of my friends from film school married my wife and I, like we roll deep. And it's cool because it's like out of those friends, there's a cinematographer, an AD, a producer, the intimacy coordinator, that can go on. And so like we're kind of like a walking crew a little bit. And while we haven't totally all worked together at once, there's been lots of little side things and things we're all trying to pull together. And I have faith that there'll be a larger project one day where it'll be like a whole reunion. We're getting closer. So yeah, I mean, but just sharing everything and I've put people in touch with them that want to be ADs or whatever, you know, and like so there is still that network aspect to those friends, even if it's not me benefiting from it. And I've been on the other side where I've had multiple students from ASU that have come out to New York, that I've been introduced to, that I've been able to just get to know, but also in a few cases help them get onto either set or into post, be that person that Carrie was for me 10, whatever it was, 14 years ago. Yeah, it's I couldn't imagine my life here without them, to be frank. So it's a huge part of it for me.
That's amazing. I love that you're still in touch with your college friends and that they're still, all out here like working, together, trying to manage, New York City and like this crazy field that we're all in. So I think that's great.
It's incredible.
Let's go to Raven.
Move to New York too. Like
yeah,
that moving phase was huge for each other.
Oh,
to help each other out where you could, like literally couches and futons and things like that. So
yeah, I like Nick, I'm still pretty close with a lot of alumni from my university. I actually work with someone who used to be my boss at the film school now. When I was a student, he ran the editing lab, and I was a like student employee at the editing lab where I helped with Avid issues and computer issues and stuff. So he and I work together now, which is great, because it's cool to have someone that I know from my past. And my best friend from college, who was a directing emphasis, actually has gotten me a few editing jobs. Like we've done a few music videos together and shorts together and stuff like that. So that's been really fun to work with him, because like, I mean, we see each other all the time anyway, but working with people that you know that you get along with is like really important. And it makes jobs that you would otherwise not think would be fun a lot more fun to work with people that you like. So yeah, I mean, I would say that like in terms of staying in contact with your peers, it's like film and TV and all kinds of post-production are really a collaborative experience. Like you don't want to just keep in contact with people who have the same dreams that you have. You like keep in contact with people that you like, but like it's cool to know people in other disciplines as well. Because if you know someone who's like a really good friend of yours, like my friend who's a director, it's great to be able to like say, hey, do you know anyone? Do you have any other director friends who are looking for editors or something like that? Like that's a really good resource to have, because also like when he was doing another music video that I didn't have time to work on, I was able to bring another one of my like editing friends, one of my like not pupils, but like someone who was 2 years younger than me in film school that I kind of helped when she was learning. I was able to be like, hey, I can't do this music video, but here's someone who can. And that's like a great way to make those connections and to keep those connections healthy, is to like have people in all walks of life who you maintain those connections with. And yeah, sorry, can you repeat the end of the question again? Like what was the
Yeah, of course. No, the question was, how do you feel that those relationships that you have established in college have helped you as you've continued to move on in your career?
Yeah, they've definitely, I mean, in every way. In every way they've helped me. They've helped me emotionally, just be like confident and happy in the jobs that I'm working on. They've helped me financially in times when like I have not had a job, where I was when I was still a freelancer, where like I could be like, hey, do you have anything for me to work on? I edited a bunch of music videos for some other peers of mine for a while who have a production company specifically for music videos. Even though I wasn't like super close with them in college, it was a really good way to just like have that as a backup plan. And yeah, I think that kind of going back to what Andy was saying before about always doing the job you have well, um, people notice that. And if you do the job that you have well, like the connections you make will stay with you. And you have to put the effort into keeping those too, because if you let people go by the wayside, they're never going to reach out to you.
Course, like every single connection, like starting from like film school uh from the point you've had a couple of like jobs under your belt and you met people there, like you have to keep on nurturing those connections like throughout the rest of your career. Like if you haven't heard from someone in a while, just like, hey, just a little like ping to just a little like check in.
Yeah.
I think that goes a long way, both just in terms of your career, but also just as like being a good friend in general.
For sure. And
So
even people that you like aren't, like I said, people that you aren't super good friends with in college, like people that you would consider peers more than friends, um, can even just like be your method of like, this is something that I want to do. This is something I want to learn, like Max was saying before. Any kind of like random discipline that you want to test out and get into, you probably know someone who does it. And so it's a really good way to like experiment and find what you want to do through working with all people who you know who work in different stuff.
no, for sure. And Andy, I'm gonna throw this over to you, last but not least.
I don't know if there's much to add. I mean, just to answer the question directly, I'll speak mainly about the Edit Center, which was that 6-week program in New York. And yeah, I mean, I still met a lot of people from that program have done very well. And it's always great to reconnect with those people. And, I think it kind of reverts for me back to the thing I said earlier about the community. It's, it wasn't even per what Max just said, a certain aversion to the word networking. It's these were just relationships that connections that happened while I was in school, in the program, and as I came out, I met various people who were attached to the program, and it was very basic in terms of finding common ground and connecting as individuals, and that having that peer group, those people that you went to school with, going through kind of the same struggles that you're going through as you're trying to explore the field, it's great to have. It's great to have that net for that type of thing. And I'm happy to say that from that program, I've reconnected with many of those people through the years, and it's been great. Just I don't even know if that was part of the question, but even just circling back to what Max was just saying, it's a curious thing that it's such a catchphrase nowadays, this idea of networking. I feel lucky to say I've never actually really thought about that. I think to me, there is something, I think we all have to find a comfortability in our own selves. And I think when you can kind of find that and you genuinely try to connect with someone, finding a place to connect with them, then those connections become real, and they can, maybe it'll lead to work, maybe it doesn't, maybe it supports you, whatever it is. But I think there's trying to find the realness, so to speak, the being genuine and making those connections that way, I think is more of the way to go, instead of kind of like, hey, this is a network, this is what I'm going to try to do. Although I have seen people very successful doing those type of things, but for me, it's never been a thought like that. And frankly, if I thought of it that way, I think I would be nervous and not myself to really connect with someone on a individual one-to-one level.
Yeah, just like making friends talk about things we love. And it's crazy how far that takes you. But yeah, we talked a bit about like what to do right after graduation. And we kind of want to talk about once you've had your first real job in the industry. And the question is, so you've secured your first job, now you're officially gotten your foot in the door. How did you ensure that you're not only successful at this job, but the people you're working with will want to work with you again? How did you foster those critical early career relationships, and how have they impacted you after your first job? Um, let's go to Colleen.
Okay. All right. So let me gather my thoughts on this. So I do have a very set experience that I can reflect on with this particular question. I did get one post-PA job in my life, and it was a very pivotal moment for me. The fact that it's quite rare that I would get that here in Pittsburgh. They don't normally do post-production here. But anyways, I did get that, and I fostered a really great connection with all of the editors and assistant editors there. And it was just a really great group, of course. They were all really cool people, and it was a great time. But I do feel like I succeeded really well in that job. And I think a big part of it is one, being willing to do the dirty work for sure. You are a PA, even if you are in this kind of separated department, there's still a lot of dirty work that needs done. And so being not feeling superior to any of the work that you need to do, as long as it's respectful to you. I think a big part of it is definitely being reliable, bringing a lot of enthusiasm to your role, being just friendly and nice and sociable with people goes a long way. A big part of my particular situation involved taking a lot of initiative. Uh, they ended up being short in a script supervisor position or something similar to that, and I ended up needing to like learn that role and kind of take that on, even though I wasn't really prepared for that. And so just kind of being prepared for anything and just jumping into things and learning as you go is a big part of it too, and being adaptable. And I think that those are the things that are going to get you, especially if I mean, no matter what the job is, but especially in a job like that where you have a very direct connection to these people who like they're kind of watching you. I don't know. I think that those are the important things that you can focus on.
Yeah, I think it's important to like know how to navigate, being watched, what that means for an experience. Um, Max, do you have any insight on this?
Um, Not like in any particular way, but one thing I wanted to say, like kind of based on what Andy was saying and what Colleen was saying, is that I also used to really have in my mind this I had a huge fear of bugging people. Um and it took me a while to really pick up on, both in terms of people reaching out to me for advice and then me reaching out to others, that like you're never really like it of the people that I've met, you're never really bugging them. It's like, so I think, one advice that I always give to people is just like, don't be afraid to, send an email a second time if they don't get back to you. Most of the time that I'm not getting back to somebody who's asking me for advice or asking me to like meet up for coffee, it's just because I'm busy. It's never like in some sort of rude like or like why is this person like doing it. And then I started to realize, oh, that's the same thing when I'm reaching out to people. It's like, it's never like, oh, like like this director is ignoring that you've praising them for something. It's like then you just get a response from them like weeks later or months later, like, Max, oh my god, like, like, and it's just, I think that's how it works. So it's just, you should never be like afraid to reach out and continue to reach out, because people are always happy to give advice and people are always happy to foster. It's just a matter of like if you're catching them in the right moment or not.
Yeah, I feel like there's a moment where someone asks me something. I'm like, oh, it's a good question. I'm like, oh, you're asking it to me. Okay. And you have to kind of like give back that annoying thing that you once felt you were doing.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
Yeah, someone also once told me I'd rather be annoying and have a job than be annoying and be not annoying and not have one.
But who's annoying, you know?
Oh, you're right. It's
You know, it's like,
I guess I just mean enthusiastic.
yeah.
Nick, how about you?
I feel like the first part of the question has been pretty, well covered. I mean, I just to echo what's been said a few times now is do whatever it is as good as you can, and especially in those PA positions, it's going to be anything and everything. I could go on with a long list of things I never thought I would be doing in relation to a film career that I was doing. Some fun, some awful, but because it's yes, you're doing the job, but what I think matters there is people notice that. It shows that you care, and that's really, I think, especially when you're in those earlier phases, that's what people are looking for. It's not like, oh, you're a technical wizard, I'm going to give you a job right away. It's like you just want to be here, you want to do it well, you want to learn, and you don't have an ego, or at least hopefully not a huge one, and that's that. I just couldn't, reiterate that enough. And I think it was it you, Colin, that said, taking initiative is a huge part of it, whatever that means, whether that's in the moment that something arises that you're able to attack and execute on and show that you're ready to whatever it is, move up or stay there longer, or get the next job. That also means when you're not on the job, at least in some cases, like what are you doing in your own time, or if you are between jobs, to nurture the things you're aiming for. A huge part of when I was able to make that jump from PA to apprentice, which is when you also get into the union, was because, to put it briefly, I took the time to teach myself After Effects and a few other things. And as a PA, I was doing more than the assistant was doing as far as those things that were needed. It was a smaller movie, and it was glaringly obvious that it was like, okay, this is not a PA's job anymore. So they pulled me up, thankfully. So that was nights and weekends when I was working on set that I was doing After Effects tutorials on lynda.com at the time, or whatever it was. So that kind of stuff is huge, and will pay off down the line. Yeah, I think that kind of, yeah, let's keep it moving. I think that's plenty. We've got a lot more I'm sure we can get through.
No, that's great. Yeah, I think not being scared to show the eagerness to learn and help is a great way to show that. Andy, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think everyone's pretty much covered. I mean, I just definitely what Nick just said about being open, being present, no ego, all those things really are important. And even I think even Colleen was saying, being respectful, and I think also too it's even the little things, like being respectful to me is about showing up on time, getting there 10 minutes earlier. I remember when I was in acting class, the first day, people came in about 5 minutes, 10 minutes late, and the acting teacher stopped the class. And there were about 20 people in the class. And basically what he was saying is, you just wasted, and he timed 5 times 20, you just wasted 100 minutes of people's time. And I think that's what kind of like respect starts, is by getting there on time, being on time, doing your job diligently. And I'll be honest too, like when my first job was in the post house, I, for lack of better words, I sucked. I was there with a couple other people who went film school. They were proficient in many different things. My first thing that I did was I was asked to go into the back room, and that was when we had those little keyboards where you push the buttons, and I took out the keys and I cleaned out each key and I put it back in and all those things. I was horrible. But the one thing that I was very good at was I was on time. When the guy said, "Hey, can you stay late?" And this was a place where there was no overtime. He was like, "Can you stay late tonight?" I was like, "Sure, I'll stay late." I did all those things. Those are the things that I could manage, was being dependable and being on time. And I was very behind of it all. But at that being said, too, on the individual aspect, it also made me understand, like, look, if I really want to make this a career or some type of job or employment, I'm going to have to get better. And I worked really hard to continue to learn and allow myself to fail, and continue to learn and continue to grow. But, you know, I was a really hot mess. I was the classic stereotype of an actor being thrown into post-production and trying to do everything. But my main thing was, I think, my work ethic and just being dependable.
And no joke, learn how to make good coffee. People will, I happen to work at Starbucks just, you know, in college, and it's big time. Like, people will remember you when you actually know how to make a latte with like the crappy set machines or whatever it is you're doing.
We'll have to talk later about how to do that. How to
For sure.
what defines good coffee.
Yeah.
Raven, do you want anything?
Just really quickly, because I think everyone said mostly what I would suggest. The one thing that I always live by is that one quote of like do it. If you're scared, do it scared. Like, don't, you can be afraid and you can be nervous and you can be anxious about whatever you're trying to get done or whatever your job is or wherever you're trying to go. But do it anyway. There's just no excuse for like stepping back and not doing something just because you think that it might not work out. You always have to believe that it will, and you always have to believe that you can, because you can. The more effort you put into something, the better it's going to be. So whether it's like Andy just said, like taking the keycaps off the things or coming in earlier, whether it's making coffee on set or whatever, like as much as it's going to make you afraid that you're not getting where you want to be, do it anyway. Do it scared, do it afraid, do it anxious, whatever you need to do, just like make those connections. And yeah. I had something else I wanted to say, but I forget what it is. So in the whatever, for time's purposes, I'll just leave it there.
Yeah,
Also,
stay
going
afraid,
off
but do it
of-
anyway.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know what Raven said, it's like also like, what's the worst that happens? You make a mistake, and like, I mean, my big thing has just always been like, oh, okay, like if I make a mistake, somebody points that out to me, I'm just gonna do my absolute best to not make that same mistake again. But you know, it's like, yeah, I've dove into a lot of things where I just I didn't have a great plan of attack. I didn't know what was gonna happen. I was scared, but you know, it's just like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And you know, what's scary, or like my biggest fear is just like is never, yeah, as scary as it is when then confronted by it.
Yeah, you wanted to help and you just tried to. Like, it's cool to learn things and make mistakes.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say that just occurred to me again was that like don't be afraid to hit a wall and don't be afraid to like hit a dead end, because that's going to happen. You're going to get a job that doesn't lead anywhere. You're going to get a job that you're never going to like really vibe with any of the people that you work with, and it's not going to go anywhere. You're going to have to take a step back and move in another direction. That's going to happen, and you're going to have to be okay with it. And that shouldn't stop you from taking opportunities that might seem like they're not in the exact direction you want to go, because sometimes they will work out and sometimes they'll lead to bigger and better things. Sometimes you'll meet someone who helps you get to where you want to go from a job that didn't seem like it was in the right direction. So just like taking opportunities and allowing yourself to adapt even when it feels scary to do so.
Yeah, well said.
Amazing. We're gonna hop over to the live chat for some questions real quick. First up, we have from Suzette. She says, to whoever this applies, were you also cutting shorts / stock on the side while working? If so, how did you balance your time? Can we start
yes,
with?
I can hop in on that really quickly. When I was a avid technician, I was editing music videos on the side for the entire time that I was there. And so I would get home from my like 40-hour work week at 6:30 p.m. and I would edit a music video until probably 11 or midnight. And then I would get up in the morning and do it again. And it was just the kind of thing where like those music videos or those shorts or mini docs or whatever you're working on are only going to last a specific amount of time. And for those weeks that it lasts, you're just not going to have much of a social life. And yeah, I mean, it's tough, but sometimes that's what you have to do. And sometimes it's what you want to do. Like when I was editing music videos, it was with people that I really enjoyed working with, and I was doing it for friends. So like it was worth it in the end. But yeah, managing my time was kind of rough, but meal service or meal service plans are really nice. Like I did a couple of them where they just mail you bags of food that you make yourself, and that was how I survived for a while.
Yeah, I would second there's a lot of, it's not the most fun answer, but it's the burning the candle at both ends, at least in the early years. And I think that still applies. Obviously, you don't want to push yourself to a point of, you know, being too unhealthy. It's generally unhealthy, to be frank. But yeah, I had a lot of that early on. Even when I was working on set, which can be its own grueling thing, you know, it'd be switching over to music videos or web series, you know, in between where I could. One other thing but this is a very specific situation. I wouldn't say it works for everyone or every situation. When I was a post PA on The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, it's a very long job with a lot of people. And there would be phases and parts of days as a PA where there was nothing to do. I mean, you're always trying to find things to do. You want to stay productive. You don't want to just be sitting there. Throughout that job, I was working on a handful of different side things, some for pay, some for not. And on my laptop, I would do some work, but I only did that if I knew it was okay. I didn't just like, you know, say, oh, I'm not going to work on it. If anything else came up, obviously I would go do that. But it was a sort of a thing over time. I was, you know, basically kind of had permission to do in a way, so to speak. And I was kind of being able to like do whatever I needed to do there, but like squeeze in 20 minutes here on something. And I think that also over time, because I'd already proven myself on that job, I think that also was a way that it showed those people how big of a shit I gave. Like I really wanted to be, I was, you know, cutting or do whatever, you know, even though I was PAing, you know, they were actually seeing that stuff a little bit, you know, in a way that wasn't, you know, wasn't taking away from my regular responsibility. So that was an interesting combo I was able to do, but tread carefully with those types of situations. If you have something like that where I could work for you, that would be ideal.
Amazing. We're gonna continue over unless like anyone else has anything else to say in regards to that. But we're gonna continue with the live chat. Okay, I just lost my spot for a second. I'm sorry, from the live chat. From Ahir, gosh, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name, by the way, but this may be personal, but what were some of your lowest moments while pursuing your career, and how did you find your way out of it?
I'll jump in because I know that's a shout out to ASU. What's up? Just graduated today, I think I heard. I mean the lowest point or lowest points it's, I think for me where I've hit some of those spots, it's been at least in one case it was very much just a burnout situation. And in that, maybe the first time that really happened, that was a matter of time, you know, just like I was able to kind of have a little bit of time off after that, and it was all okay, but it took a lot longer than I wanted it to, and I was definitely like dragging by the end of that job. So that was just pure situation of like overwork. And then I've had, you know, at least one experience where, to put it broadly, like, you know, through a variety of factors, logistic, creative, you name it, it was just, it got you to a point where you're like, all right, I think as everyone's kind of referenced here, there's these moments where you're just like, what am I doing? Or should I keep doing this? Is this sustainable? All that kind of stuff for whatever reasons. And I definitely had more than just, I had that was more than just burnout. And in that case, sure, there was time. That always helps if you can manage a little bit of rest, obviously. talking to those friends, getting that stuff out, you know, working through that stuff through conversation or however works best for you. And in that situation, getting back on the horse, so to speak, you know, not in a immediate chaotic way, like let me just go back into a crazy amount of work, but like sort of dipping your toe back into something and reminding myself in that case how much I still love it despite the situation that had happened before that. You know, it took a minute, but it had me questioning it, and I was like, actually no. But you know, so it's hard to like, you know, these are like the more like conversations over beers, but I hope that's somewhat helpful, you know.
Anybody else have anything you want to add to that?
I mean, I just want to build on what Nick was saying. I mean, when he's talked about time and stuff, I think it's, you know, when you're in it and you're in your lowest moment, it's hard to recognize that there's an other side. There is this, you know, Isaac Newton's law of gravity. When you're down, you'll come up, and when you come up, you go down. And I think it's knowing that there's an other side, taking a breath, and also even building what Nick said. I even kind of go with that thing of staying in motion. Yeah, you're down, but let's keep working, whatever it is. If I have to pay for my rent or whatever it is, I'll take whatever job it can be. And if there's this creative opportunity that comes along, that's not exactly what I want to do, but I'll just jump into it, because by staying in motion, work can bring in work. But, you know, take a breath to the universe. Realize I've had many, many lows in my life where I thought I could never crawl out of, but there is another side. Just take a breath and keep pushing forward. And, you know, just add, support what Nick said. That's about your friends network. That's about leaning on the people or whatever it is that can give you comfort in those times. That gives you comfort, and that is of quality. Those are the things I think that can really help you when you're lowest point. But always remember, there's another side.
That was great, Andy. I think you should really put these online somewhere for inspirational speeches. This was a question from earlier in the chat, but Ryan T asks, does the union help you find work? Which also ties in some questions we wanted to get to later, but I think we don't have time for them. But what's your experience with getting into the union, and like what advice do you give to what that benefits you? 'Cause I think a lot of people just graduating might not know the best way to navigate getting into that.
I'll jump in. I mean, not to be like, I don't want to sound cynical or anything, but I've never gotten a job through the union or directly. There's much other great things that it provides. Socialization, health insurance, you know, retirement, things that you don't think about or care about in your 20s, and then you're like, you get to your 30s and later and you're like, oh, this is really nice. Yeah, so just to be brief on it, or I guess, what is there any other union related? I know one thing was like New York versus LA getting in. I can say quickly that like, at least when I was getting in, New York is way simpler for whatever reasons. It's basically get a job, they make sure the job is real, and then you pay some money and you're in. And I know LA has a lot more structure around it. I'm sure there's some historical reasons as why that is. But yeah, New York is kind of down and dirty. If you just get the job, you kind of can jump in. You know, so but yeah, I don't know, can go in other union directions, I suppose, or if anyone else has anything.
Okay. If no one else has anything to add about the union experience, we'll go to the next question.
I mean, I just want to say, you know, for all the newcomers here that, I think union for us basically is a basic umbrella. It gives us a certain rate, provides health insurance, our pension, all of those things. But the union, that's what they're protecting us to do. But yes, there are opportunities where job things come through, but think of how many members there are. It's very competitive. It's not someplace, the union's not there to support us to necessarily get us work. So just to be clear, the union is great. I love it. I'm very grateful to be part of it, but don't be under the delusion or the thought or that being part of the union all of a sudden gives you, it's a network that automatically brings you work. No, it's not that case. And even those get-togethers, it's not that case. It is something that supports us and protects us as employees, yes, just protects us and takes good care of us. Yeah.
And I know people might wonder this, but you can take non-union work when you're in the union, correct? Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Not true in other unions, for what that's worth. Some other unions, that is a hard no, but in MPEG, you are allowed now.
I think that's something that I misunderstood when I was starting out. Okay, next live question. Any advice for finding that first job when you don't have a network?
I would say just reach out to people. Like just like get over the pride of like sending an email you don't want to send and send that stupid email. It doesn't matter. Like people will appreciate it one way or another. Reach out to people you respect, reach out to people you've never heard of before, reach out to projects, reach out to producers and directors and other editors and post PAs and whoever else you can find. Just be like, hey, I like what you do and I want to know, you know, if you have any advice for me. And a lot of the time they'll be like, yeah, actually I do have some advice, and then they'll help you out. And yeah, it's just a matter of sending those awkward emails and making those awkward phone calls for sure. I got my first internship by just mass emailing a bunch of post studios in LA when I was in college. Just like, hey, I'm looking for an internship. Do you want me? One of them said yes. And that was how I got my first internship, and then how I got my first job. So yeah, it's just about sending out those feelers for whatever you can find.
Yeah, it's several versions of that. Emails. I mean, I've been hit up on Instagram by people that are, I'm not saying that sounds, sometimes you're like, that's like a little weird, but sometimes it's fine. But also if you're in an area or have an opportunity to, whether it's like an in-person thing, if it's that awkward moment of like, if there's a normal, not intrusive opportunity to say hi to someone, go do it. Our apprentice editor on Barbie, I remember she met our editor, Nick Huey, at a screening. I think it was of Little Woman or something that we were doing. And that was like 2 years or something before Barbie. And she just was like, hey, I like your stuff. Can we keep in touch? And like, that was it. And 2 years later, she was on Barbie, like it paid off in that way. But again, I don't think she was doing it because she's like, I'm gonna work on Barbie in 2 years. It was just because she, liked the things that Nick had cut. And that's another specific thing I've heard a lot of people say to me, or I've heard over the years, is like, reach out if you have a specificity, TV versus film versus, what have you. Find those people and it's at least, and even if you can't get in touch with the person you're trying, maybe along the way you'll find some others.
I just want to make a quick comment about this, and it's on the reverse side, because I just went through this whole process of hiring a PA, and we went through a situation where we needed to get a new PA or whatever. Like, yes, you do these networking things. I want to just give this advice. So many people came back to me and said, your email went to spam. What happened or whatever? Make sure you check your spam. Make sure, and also too, if you're going to communicate people, do it with respect. And if there is some kind of question or some kind of response. It's not just about you sending out the energy. It's about a certain reciprocation, a certain aspect to it. And at those early stages, show your responsibility and your character and respect. Then, I mean, tell you, there were so many people who had all these great things about film school and experience, and I would email them and they wouldn't say anything back, or I'd interview them and they wouldn't say anything back, or they'd come back to me 3 weeks later and it was in a spam thing, and then I immediately wrote to them when I heard about another job and they didn't say anything to me. And is this person someone I'm going to consider recommending, considering in the future? Probably not. So I just want to feed on this thing of like, yeah, it's great. Make these contacts, these genuine relationships, send things out, but understand there's a certain level of communication that has to happen. It's not about you just sending out the energy. It's about a reciprocation and being respectful. And even in those little minute moments of communication, there is a certain judgment, there is a certain criticism and review that's going on of you, these little tiny bits. So take it with care. And like Max said, don't live in fear. Don't be fearful of it, but be aware of it.
Yeah, I think realizing those things about people have just have like these minor things that can happen to get in the way of these of like what you want is important. Um,
It's funny, you know, because when I graduated college, I didn't know about any of this. You know, I didn't know about like our, you know, of the New York Post Alliance and Blue Collar Post. You know, but what's now become very apparent to me with the amount of times that people have reached out to me is that like all of our emails are out there, or as Nick is saying, Instagram's out there. There's so many ways that you know, like for people to get in touch with me, people get in touch with me from like all over the world, being like, you know, like I'm an assistant editor in Australia and I saw this movie and saw that you were the first on it. Like, how did that happen? You know, and yeah.
that's great.
You know, I think it's like Andy's saying, you know, it's just like, you know, the one thing to keep in mind is that, like, you know, there's a lot of people looking for opportunity and advice. So, you know, when you do get your foot in the door, keep the relationship going and, you know, yeah.
No, great, thank you.
Yeah, I think yeah, thank you everyone for all of that. I think that's great. And like trust me guys, like when I say like you have to get over that awkwardness of like cold emailing people, because I think that's a way that it's like it's a barrier that every one of us has had to overcome at some point. But once you overcome it, like you can like great things can come out of that. Because actually, fun fact, cold emailing is actually how I first met Nick Ramirez on this call. Because I was just like, okay, like I love like all these movies, and I'm like, okay, like who works on these movies? Who should I talk to? I like got over my anxiety and I just sent Nick a cold email, and like he was like very gracious enough to respond and give me like a couple hours of his time to, you know, hop on a call with me, give me advice, and which was great. And by the way, I'm still like super, super thankful for that. And you know, great things can come out of it. You can make like so many good connections by doing that, and you never know what that might lead to.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say I try and do it as much as I can because people did it for me when I was first getting out here, and that was huge, as I've already referenced. So try and pay it forward mentality, you know.
Yeah. I want to add, don't be scared to follow up because I've had some people situations where I got a job because I followed up and they were like, "Oh my God, sorry, I was at going to a wedding or something, but I'm gonna refer you to something." But we have one more live chat question and then one last question after that, then we're gonna wrap up. Um, with so many of you, sorry, with so much of Post fully remote now, how do you recommend to build connections through online means? Does LinkedIn messaging work in your experience? You kind of spoke on that with Instagram and cold emailing, but I guess like with people being told to make a business and portfolio out of it, how do you recommend like how has it changed, I guess, over the post-COVID very remote now?
I guess I just want to jump in and just know Max and Nick from being in New York, but I think actually the culture of being remote is changing. I actually think there has been a real injection now, and even jobs I've interviewed where it's been like you're going to be in person. And now the aspect of giving us remote opportunities makes us more flexible. Somebody's sick, we have to take care of a family member, et cetera. But I think it's a slight misnomer. I guess for all the people who are just graduating school, at least if you want to work in the narrative industry, I think you need to think of yourself being physically present. And yes, there are projects, certain shows where they might not have the budget to provide facilities for you to work in, and that is a possibility. But I think if you are coming specifically, I'll speak specifically to this market in New York City. If you are coming to New York City, you should think that you are going to be working in person. And that would be, especially if you're starting off at a lower level, a PA or whatever, that would be a #1 requirement that you're there all the time. And I'm sorry to bar the other aspect of the question, but I think it's a slight misnomer to feel that we're all remote. And a very basic aspect of post-production is, first of all, yes, remote systems are great, but it's definitely more robust to work in a facility. And then the other degree that I think some people started to miss during the remote aspect is the aspect of collaboration. Yes, you can send texts, you can Slack all day, you can do Zoom meetings, but there is a very tangible quality of walking across to another room to say, hey, do you need this? Someone coming over to you to explain things, etc. So yeah, I do think there is a remote aspect, but I do think we're in a stretch now where we're really starting to embrace being in person again.
Does anyone want to add?
Okay.
Yeah, I would just, I mean, back all that up. I mean, everything you said is very true. Again, at least in the narrative, world that I've mostly worked in. This is my first week in this facility after, this is a good example of this movie because of where they were shooting and budget. My assistant and I were remote during the shoot, or most of the shoot, working from home. Short shoot, only about 4-ish weeks or so, 5 weeks. But now transitioned into in person, so the director will be in soon and all that. And it's just like, I'm so happy. It's like, it was fine at home and there was some pluses to it, but just having been here a few days, I'm like, it's so great. And seeing people down the halls, other movies even today I was cross-pollinating with someone of like, they're like, yeah, I'm like looking for this music thing on totally another movie. Just sort of swapping ideas, and like that's a huge part. And so I think, yeah, just to echo what Annie says, hopefully it at most is a hybrid situation moving forward. But I don't know, I mean, in other aspects of the industry, or it sounds like already some of the people on this call obviously are much more remote, so maybe they can speak more to that.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in something real quick. Being a fully remote editor, and like talking to a lot of remote or people or editors wanting to be remote every day. I do think that there is a big world of opportunity as far as connection goes. I think a lot of it is social media based. There's still a lot of things that are kind of ancient, but are tried and true. I think that there's a lot of great Facebook groups that you can find that are pretty easy to just search for on Facebook, that are like connecting video editors with video editors, connecting video editors with clients. Reddit is also a great place to look as far as depending on what connections you're looking for exactly. Specifically in the question, I don't like LinkedIn messaging. I think it can work potentially, but it's often kind of mixed in with some ingenuine messaging. So it's, take it for what you will. I honestly feel like Instagram has become more of a genuine messaging platform than LinkedIn, but I'm sure that they kind of go hand in hand depending. But I don't know. That's my take on all of that.
I've only gone to LinkedIn. I go to LinkedIn like once every couple years, and then I see that I've got like happy birthday messages from my like mom's like friend or something like that, and there's less like, hey, I'm looking to get into the industry. Maybe it's just like better for things that aren't exactly this path. I do think that I have a website, and I think that's been a helpful thing, and it's something definitely once you've started to get a little bit of wind in your sails to consider, just because like it's great to have something that's like an easier thing for people to access and see what you've worked on, or for you to post projects that you've cut. I think that's something that's and has your email on it or a form of contact. I think that's been a more helpful thing on both ends of me getting a job and finding a job than yes, keeping up with LinkedIn.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I've never had a LinkedIn, if that is helpful. I don't know if that's true for other people. Yeah.
I don't have a LinkedIn as well, Nick. We should go to a bar and have a drink.
Do it.
Yeah, I have one, but I have not known the password for probably 3 years.
Oh my God. That's funny. But yeah, unfortunately, as much fun as we're all having right now, we're running out of time here, so I'm just gonna have just like one last question for everyone on this panel. It's a nice little way to end things out here. So let's say you were able to go back in time to talk to yourself on your graduation day from college. What would you tell the younger version of yourself? And what are some things that you know now that you wish you had known that back then? Let's start with Raven.
Um, I mean, my kind of jokey answer is that I would tell myself, you have ADHD, deal with that now. Because that was a big inhibitor for me for a while. It's just not knowing my own limitations. So like I think that's a big thing would be going back and like telling myself, this is what you're good at and this is what you struggle with. You should work on the stuff that you struggle with more than focusing so much on the stuff that you're already good at. Because being well-rounded is really helpful. I wish I had known After Effects earlier than I did, and I wish I had known um, Pro Tools earlier than I did, and stuff like that. It's just like advice that I would give myself is just learn more, be more open to information that you don't think you need because you probably will. And even if you don't, it's good information to have. It'll help you in the future. Like random things I know from my parents being biologists have helped me on certain roles because, like, on a documentary about hawks, I knew a lot about hawks because my mom studies birds and like stuff like that is just weird knowledge that you have. Hone in on that and learn as much as you can and pay attention to as much as you can because like focusing on the minutia of what you think you need to know is almost never the path that you want to take. It's almost never as helpful as just taking in as much information as you can.
Okay, let's go to Nick.
I would say, at least speaking for myself, I know I got into this whole industry with like big pie in the sky focus and like excitement, as I had mentioned before. And it was like literally for more than half of my life now, it's been like, this is the thing I want to do, which is great. I think it drove me in a lot of ways. I think it was a huge part of my motivation and my stamina, especially in the first leg or so of my career. But I would tell myself now that be careful to not forget that as much as we might love films, TV, or whatever, it's not. It sounds obvious, but it's not everything. I really put a lot of myself into so much of my career, and as life has changed over the years, there's been a needed rebalancing at times of just other aspects of life and things like that. And if you don't foster that stuff, it will lead to burnout or it will lead to dissatisfaction. And so just yeah, I mean, to kind of, it's not everything, even if it is important. And more pragmatically, watch as many things and movies as you can and read books and like all the things, take it all in, because some of the greatest directors I've worked with are not just film nerds. They are pretty good at that, but like, man, the breadth of theater, books, you name it, like it's sort of like this infinite well we're all able to draw from, whether it's for creative reasons or conversational reasons. So always work towards being a good student of our medium all the time. And I'm saying that as much to myself as I am to you now, because that's something I'm always trying to keep up on. There's too much to watch all the time and never enough time for it. So while you're young and maybe don't have that job yet, pack it in.
Amazing. Colleen, let's go to you.
Yeah, it's so tough because my first thought was to tell myself to like get on Upwork or start freelancing from day one, because I didn't quite do that. I didn't really even know that that was an option at that time. But then I'm now backtracking because it's like, well, I don't regret, even though I've had kind of a strange like way of getting here, I don't regret any of my past experiences because the people that I've met, the different kinds of experiences, the things I have learned about being on a film set and the different aspects of production that I never would have gone into if I hadn't been just thrown into it randomly. So it's so tough. Like I don't regret any of that. But maybe just for the fact that I have had quite a few gaps in my life of like not having any work, and maybe the experience of knowing how to get random gigs online would have helped with that. So I don't know. I guess that's my answer.
Okay, let's go to Max.
Yeah, I don't know. The advice I would give to myself is to not be so hard on yourself. I think that, kind of going off of what Nick was saying, it's, I think deep down I've always known like when I'm putting enough in, and often it has been enough. Like, when you kind of like want to start to like pick up the slack and like focus more, but it's, I don't know. I've spilt a coffee on an editor's laptop and I'm still here. I made a backup DVD on a project for a famous director, and he tried showing it to his friends on a weekend and it didn't totally work properly, and I'm still here. And these moments like were like so scary at the time, and I thought the entire like universe was gonna end, and then it just kept going. So like, that's the thing. It's that I feel like, I went through a period of time, definitely in my mid-20s, where I think I was a more anxious person, and I would give myself a really hard time for failures. And now I look back on it, even this last job I just worked that had very stressful moments. It's funny, now it's over, and I was trying to think back on like, what was that like moment where I was like really, really frustrated? What happened that night? And I can't even now I can't even remember what the problem was, because it's like I've kind of learned, I think in a way it's like these things are less leaving deep impacts anymore, and I've learned to just kind of like let it go over the shoulder and keep going, so that's my advice. Don't be hard on yourself.
And Andy Pang, let's end things strong here.
Oh, shit. Come on, a lot of pressure. I feel like I'm going to sound like an Instagram ad or something. I think the first thing I would say is take a breath, dude. Everything's going to be okay. I think even going back to that question about being in your darkest points, everything's going to be okay. Stay in motion, continue to work hard. I think one of the best pieces of advice I would probably give myself is like, stop looking outside at the other lanes. Focus on your path. There can be a tendency, especially when you're getting out of school, especially for me, when I got out of acting school, you're like, oh, that guy's doing this and she's doing that. Or, hey, we're working in the same post-editorial offices together. This person's getting a chance to do that. That person's doing that. Stay in your lane. Focus on what you're doing. Your time will come. And, we talked a little bit about luck earlier. There is a little bit of luck, but there is also a real aspect to luck, right? It's about being ready for the moment. We talk about right now about networking, touching base or whatever, but are you ready? Do you have the tools? Make sure you have the tools and that you're ready all the time, because those moments come up few and far between. And when it does come up, be ready to take advantage of it. I mean, Nick was a great example talking about his After Effects skills. Even Max's story, Raven's story, everyone's story here is everyone was, when that moment arrived, they were ready and they were able to take it. So take your time, relax. And then the final point, not a final point, but when I worked at the Post House, I worked with these two really great tech guys, and I learned so much from these guys. But, with any problem or issue that came up, they stayed pragmatic about it. We are, as human beings, we're emotional beings. Try not to get high, too low, and understand that what we do in this industry is that we deal with problems, whether it be a technical problem or just the problem of how are we going to put this 2-shot up against this wide shot, whatever it is, it's problem solving. So have a good attitude about it. And hold on, one more thing. There's a really great editor I work with. Maybe Max and Nick know him, Jeff Richmond. And there was a time we were do a lot of foot races together. We'd go running and do all these things. And we talked about when we were doing the marathon, there's a whole thing like, if you start out in the race and it's a rainy day, it's a crappy day, and you start off with a negative attitude, those 26 miles are friggin' hell. But if you have the perspective of taking on the challenge and not letting yourself being brought down by these negative thoughts, you can do it and you can make it and you can actually get more enjoyment out of it. So understand that life is full of problems, full of issues, and it's just as much a part of life as the high points, and deal with them to the best of your ability. And whatever you don't have at that time, learn and grow and keep growing.
You nailed it. That was the best possible ending. But anyway, with that, we're gonna wrap things up here. So I would like to thank everyone on the panel for joining us. Raven, Andy, Nick, Colleen, Max, thank you all so much for your great insight and for all of your helpful words and advice. I'm sure everyone watching is very appreciative of that. And just thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here with us. Also want to thank Matt for co-hosting with this. This would not have been, we couldn't have pulled this off without you and everyone else on the team at Blue Collar Post Collective, Genevieve for moderating the chat, Ashley for, being the tech wizard, as well as everyone else with BCPC on the NYC committee. So with that, thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll hope to see you guys soon, whether it be virtually or at one of our events.
Thank you, Matt and Raul.
Thank you, Raul.
Thanks.